everyone, today I'm going to show you an easy technique to create drop stitch panels like this using your circular knitting machine. For this project you will need waste yarn of your choice. I'm using this Caron Simply Soft Speckle in White Sage. You'll need your crochet hook to finish and a couple of stitch markers. We will be working with panels for this project, so if you have additional questions on how to use panels or make panels with your circular knitting machine, I do have a knitting machine playlist that you can go and find some really helpful tips and tricks. So you'll want to start by casting onto your machine with your waste yarn. I am using all of the pins on my Addi 46, so that will be 43 stitches all the way around. Once you have your waste yarn, you can cast on with your working yarn. And then knit the number of rows that you desire. With a drop stitch panel, plan for about a double in size of what you're used to working with. So for this particular pattern that I'm designing and working on right now, I'm actually just going to knit 22 rows, and that will be about 11 inches long. And when you get to your desired amount of rows, you can go ahead and remove your working yarn, and you're going to cast off with waste yarn. Now, one thing I do recommend, this is where your stitch markers are going to come in handy. So before you do any more rows of your waste yarn, I do recommend marking the first and last stitches of your row. And the reason for that is we are going to be dropping every other stitch, but you do want to make sure that your end stitches are still intact. That way you still have a shape to your garment. Once you have your amount of waste yarn, now you can just cast off by cranking until the work falls off of your machine. So we're going to start by finishing the cast on end. So this is the end that you first cast onto the machine with. So we're doing that because we want to make sure that every one of these loops down here are picked up, because when we drop every other stitch at the top and we don't pick these up down below, your whole work will come unraveled. So this is why we're always going to start with that cast on edge. So we're going to come over to the side. We're going to do a standard single crochet to pick up all of our loops. So just making sure you don't miss any. You're just going to go under all of the live loops, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through. And that's your first single crochet. And then we're going to do it again. And then we're just going to continue to single crochet and pick up all of these live loops all the way down to the end. And then you can bind off. Now, I use a single crochet to finish my pieces, especially a garment like this, because there is enough stretch, but it also has enough structure to it. But because we're going to be dropping every other stitch and making this a very flexible sized item, you can actually do additional chains on here and make those stitches a little bit longer so that it would expand a little bit more. So you can definitely be flexible with how you finish your project. So here's what the bottom with that single crochet is going to look like. And now it's safe to remove your waste yarn. Now that we've finished the cast on edge, now it is time to finish the cast off edge and create the drop stitching effect. So for the cast off edge, we are going to add an extra chain between our single crochets, and that'll make up for the drop stitch that we have. If you don't do that, that's okay, but it will make it a lot tighter at the neckline. And if you want this to be stretchy and make sure to fit it over your head, I would recommend adding at least one chain. So this is where I added the stitch marker here on this corner, and then there's another one over here. Again, that should be the stitch that you start with. We want to make sure we have that structure on both of the ends. All right, so we picked up our first loop here on the right, so we are actually going to skip this one right here, and then we're going to go into our next loop, yarn over, and we're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to chain one. Again, that'll give us that flexibility. We're going to skip the next one, pick up the next loop, single crochet, and then chain one. And we're going to continue doing that. Skip the next one, pick up that one, single crochet, chain one. And we're going to do that all the way down to the end. Now you can do this technique on your machine. In fact, that's how I typically do it. But I have found that if you're just starting off with drop stitches, this is a really easy way to do this technique, and it does seem to go pretty quickly. And when you get down to the end, you should end on a drop stitch and then a not drop stitch. So just make sure that it evens out so that the very last stitch that you have, you do not drop. If for some reason you made a miscalculation and you missed an extra one in here, you can easily just remove the finish at this point because you still have your waste yarn on, and you can go back and adjust your stitches. So we are going to pick up this final stitch here, and we'll do a single crochet, and then I'll just go ahead and remove and bind off that yarn tail. And now you can go ahead, it's safe to take off your waste yarn. So here is the end with the single crochet and the chain one, and then this is the other end that we finished with a single crochet. So there is a lot of stretch still on both ends. And now we're gonna make the magic happen. So we're gonna make our piece extend in that really cool mesh look. So I just have it on my blocking board just to show you. You can just hold it. But as you start to pull the yarn, you'll notice how you get this really cool netting effect. And this is done again with every other stitch. Play around with different techniques and see which type of patterns work best for you. You could try doing every third stitch. You can create some really cool patterns that way, but just keep pulling until you've fully pulled out your work. And if you end up with any loops down here in the initial chain, just continue to tug until those loops disappear. And again, this is what the finished panel will look like. You can use this for a number of different things. I'm actually wrapping up a pattern right now on making a really cool drop top. You can see something like this with some fun little sleeves. So let me know if you have any questions about working with your circular knitting machine. And until next time, see ya!